All right. Today we're going to discuss the elements of a successful sales call. Okay. Some of the elements here are getting past the gatekeeper to the decision maker, making an attention-getting statement, qualification, which is absolutely one of the most important things in making a successful sales call, which qualification is how do they handle problem accounts, how often do they place, how many do they place, what are the average balances, your presentation on what they can expect from other agencies, and your presentation on what we do, a comparison on our private investigators, face-to-face visits, local attorneys in every jurisdiction, as well as superstar collectors. This is something you want them to see the difference in and get them to buy into the fact that they cannot live without us. If you have successfully made that presentation, you will be ready for a trial close and be ready to overcome any objections. Of course, any objections that have come forth before or even during your presentation should always be made at the time of the objection. So let's talk about the decision maker. Before attempting to call a prospect, you should always determine who the decision maker is. Now, sometimes you are going to do this while you're on the phone with the gatekeeper. Sometimes you may need to call back to get past that gatekeeper. But you need to find out who in the prospect's company can make the decision to place accounts with you. Now, depending on the size of the company, either in total volume of sales or number of employees, this may be the owner, it may be the chief financial officer, it may be the controller, treasurer, an accountant, a credit manager, a collection manager, or someone else who can make the decision to place accounts with a collection agency. Most of the leads in our system will have a high-ranking contact name that can direct you to the appropriate party. Now, the larger the company is in both volume of sales and number of employees, the more likely there will be a credit manager who is responsible for the collection of past due accounts. This individual normally has the authority to place accounts with you. However, it is a fact of corporate life that in most instances, the credit manager is not highly ranked on the company's organizational chart. This person was probably given the job simply because he said he could do it. Hey man, I can do it. In most instances, the credit manager has no formal training in the credit granting process. This is something we run into very often with credit managers. Now, some of these guys are superstar credit managers. I've run into many that are very, very good at what they do, but I've also run into many that, well, they don't really know what they're doing. Now, this is something you should be aware of. Therefore, don't be afraid of starting high and trying to get to the decision maker. Me personally, I have a knack for getting the CEO or the owner of the company on the phone and talking to them. And of course, they're not the person, well, they may be part of the decision-making process on who to place it with. However, they're going to tell you that they have delegated an appropriate authority for this particular process. Something you want to also keep in mind is, in addition to the decision maker, there are also decision influencers. These are individuals who, while they don't make the ultimate decision to place the accounts, they do exert considerable influence over the decision maker. And this may just be personnel in the accounts receivable department. For example, sometimes a credit manager in a larger company may have a collection manager that reports to him. Now, while the credit manager might be the decision maker in this instance, the collection manager will have a great deal of influence over the credit manager's decision to place accounts with you. Or the officer above the credit manager can also influence the decision, such as the controller, CFO, treasurer maybe. They can order the credit manager to do business with you. This is one of the reasons why I've always wanted to speak to the highest person I could in the company. Because if you get their attention and they actually transfer you to the credit manager, well, the credit manager is going to see on the ID who the phone call is coming from, and you can also drop that name in your presentation. You know, so-and-so said, I need to discuss these issues of credit delinquencies with you so we can get these matters facilitated. Now, in some situations, you can't talk to the decision maker. Okay, so it may be advisable to talk to a decision influencer before getting to the decision maker. Now, this is when your knowledge of a particular industry or company will help you decide who the appropriate individual is that can make the decision to place accounts with you. Now, in the calling process, there are distinct steps that will help you gain more clients. Sometimes before you begin to make a call to a prospect that you're going to be going in and making a presentation to a decision maker. Again, I say prospect because this isn't necessarily something you want to do when you're burning through cold leads to find who to talk to and who's going to talk to you. But in the instance of prospect presentation, sometimes if you don't have your presentation down pat, take a 1-minute rehearsal. Prior to making your call and making your presentation, decide exactly what's going through your mind. Go over objections that you might encounter. Prepare for the resistance. Process mentally a smooth presentation. Focus on what your prospect needs. Focus on what your prospect wants. And remember this. People love to buy, but they hate to be sold. So you are about to give a performance, just like an actor on a stage. Now, while you may have given the same performance many times before, your prospect is about to hear it for the first time. So you have to make it sound like you're giving this presentation for the first time. If you're going to be successful, you must be up for every call before you make it. With this frame of mind, you're ready to begin to go through the steps of making a call. And remember this, even though we may have constructed the sales call by steps, this does not necessarily mean that you must go through each step in sequence. Think of your steps inside of a sales call as a roadmap to your calls. Just as if you were driving from Los Angeles to New Orleans, you would have to plan to stay on Interstate 10 for a long time. And you might veer off along the way for sightseeing or to grab a bite to eat, fuel up the vehicle. But you will get back on your pre-planned route. The same is true with your calls. You will have to deviate from your plan. And this is the give and the take of the call. But you always should get it back on course to reach the desired destination, which is to get accounts placed with you. So as we look at a sales call pattern, consider it as a roadmap to get you to your destination. Now, the first step, of course, is getting to the decision maker. If you're going through your leads or referrals you may have, sometimes you know the name of the decision maker, and you can simply ask for that person. However, if you do not know the name of the person who has the authority to place accounts with you, there are various techniques to use to get through to the person who actually has that authority. For example, the controller of a company may have to approve all collection agencies that are used. But once he makes this decision, then the credit manager has the authority to place accounts for collections. It is important to understand this distinction because you do not want to waste time talking with someone who does not have the specific authority to make the decision on choosing a collection agency. Now, all of the techniques you will use will involve a confident, take charge tone of voice when asking for the decision maker. When you do not know who this decision maker is, either by title or name, you will need to ask the person answering the phone to direct you to the proper individual. In doing so, you must make yourself perfectly clear as to what you want and who you want to speak to. Now, normally the person answering the phone is going to be in an entry-level position. Now, unfortunately, this person, more times than not, is not aware of all of the duties and responsibilities of the people in the organization. This person may or may not know the person who's responsible for handling accounts receivable. So in some instances, simply asking for the credit manager will get you through to the decision maker. In other instances, The company may not have a credit manager, and you may need to make yourself more clear about exactly to whom you wish to speak. Now, this can usually be accomplished by telling the person answering the phone that you want to speak with the person who handles accounts receivable. Most people will understand this. Now, if you don't make yourself clear, you might spend valuable time explaining exactly what you want. So being clear is very important. And guys, remember, before any sale can be made, it is imperative that we cultivate the ability to speak to a true decision maker or a decision influencer. And guys, remember, it is the duty of any good receptionist or personal assistant or secretary, whatever they call themselves these days, to attempt to limit the number of unsolicited telephone calls to members of that organization. So remember, the gatekeeper is programmed to screen your calls and will make every attempt to send you to a voicemail or completely just blow you off. So you will need to make every attempt to remove any obstacles that would prevent them from transferring your call to the appropriate party. Now, when you're getting the name of the person with whom you want to speak, be sure you get the correct spelling and pronunciation as well as the person's title. For instance, even a common name that sounds like Brown may actually be spelled B-R-A-U-N, B-R-A-U-N-E, B-R-O-U-N, B-R-O-W-N-E, and a name like Wise may turn out to be Weiss, W-E-I-S-S, or W-E-I-T-Z, or perhaps even W-Y-T-H-E. Whenever you add a new name to your list of prospects, make sure you get it down exactly right the first time. Get the exact first name and the exact last name, as well as the correct pronunciation phonetically. Sometimes you will need a reminder on any future callbacks if the name is spelled differently than it sounds. In this case, you'll want to put yourself a little note in there that says how the name is pronounced. Now, once you get the name of the decision maker, the most common obstacle you are up against in trying to reach that person is the gatekeeper, the call screener, the receptionist. The reason for this is that if the person you are aiming for spoke with every salesperson who called on the phone, he wouldn't have any time for anything else. So that person is forced to build a sheltered fortress manned by tough, skilled guards called receptionists, personal assistants, secretaries. This is your gatekeeper. It should always be expected that your gatekeeper will ask, "What do you wish to talk to Mr. Prospect about?" It's their job to keep their bosses from wasting their time. It is also their job in a screening process to connect those people who can actually benefit their bosses. So sometimes it pays to give part of your presentation to the receptionist, just a little tidbit to convince them that the benefits are there. But a word of caution, seldom will a salesperson have something to say to a prospect that is greatly important. Okay, so be careful with the truth, which simply means you do not want to be too misleading, because you might be able to fool the receptionist to get in on this basis once. But if you're untruthful to get in, the chances of getting accounts placed will suffer. It will suffer greatly. And you definitely do not want to suffer. Suffering is no good. Okay, now I don't have any participants in here as of yet. If any of you guys that are viewing this go to the actual last invitation that was sent out, the last invitation that was sent just before this broadcast will allow you to get in and be able to participate in this hangout. Part of this is participation. You know, I like the fact that I have viewers, but I would also like some engagement as well. Anyway, we need to get into one of the next points on this, the greeting, the introduction. Okay, now this part only takes a few seconds, but it's probably one of the most important few seconds of the sales call. It can set the tone for the rest of the call and frequently will determine whether or not your call is successful. Okay, so first, you should have definitely established the name of the person whom you are going to speak with, as well as the correct pronunciation. So get hooked on phonics here. Now, how you will greet this prospect will depend upon how he or she answers the phone. If he answers the phone with Mr. Jones, then start off by calling him Mr. Jones. If he starts off by calling himself Tom Jones, then it is permissible to use his first name. The point to remember at this stage of the call is that every prospect is interested in himself first and his business second. Last of all, you. Okay? Now, when you say his name and pronounce it correctly, you should have his attention focused on you. This is the simplest of all techniques for strengthening the chances of making a successful presentation. Yet, too many inside salespeople ignore it. Whenever you listen to an experienced inside salesperson in action, you will hear him or her greet that prospect by their name and use it from time to time throughout the interview. And yes, I say interview. If you've been to my sales training presentations before, you will know that I consider a presentation an interview. You are interviewing a prospect to do business with you. And it's very important that you see it that way. Because if you see it as just a presentation, you're only going to make some sales. If you see it as an interview, an engaging process, you will have a much higher close ratio. This is an essential part of any selling strategy. Back to names, we give our attention to people who call us by name. A name is like a magnet. No matter how far your prospect's mind may wander, you can attract his attention back to you simply by calling him by name. Okay, once you have greeted the prospect, then you must introduce yourself and the firm Lyons and Associates. This approach is absolutely essential, and it should be done on every sales call. Okay, and this process should only take a few seconds. Okay, for example, assume the prospect answers the phone by saying, "This is Tom Jones." By the prospect giving you his first and last name, he is giving you permission to use his first name, so you should respond by saying, "Hi, Tom. This is, whoever. Hi, Tom. This is Mike Lyons with the firm Lyons and Associates." And that's really all there is to get this step of greeting and introducing yourself to the company. Now, the next thing you need to do is earn the right to qualify. Okay? Because at this point, you will normally only have a few seconds to take control of the call and spark your prospect's interest. Voice control and enthusiasm are the keys to achieving this goal. If you are using a script, you should make sure that your presentation does not sound canned. Okay? Hopefully everyone who's listening knows what a canned talk-off is. Repetition can lead to boredom. Okay, you can combat this by adding a warm greeting at the beginning of your presentation. Normally, your prospect will respond to this, and rapport on a personal basis is established. Now, some experts in the field of telemarketing and inside sales, and hopefully you guys know the difference between the two, they suggest that it is inappropriate to ask questions at this point, such as, "How are you today?" or "How's the weather in Dallas?" However, in some parts of the country, particularly in the West and in the South, these may be good icebreakers. Okay? I live in the South. Our corporate headquarters is stationed in the South. Guys, if you've ever heard the term Southern hospitality, that term is a term for a reason. And Southern hospitality, if you're calling in Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, will help you establish rapport between you and your prospect. Okay, now this is something that you will have to experiment with. If you find that by using these types of introductory questions, how are you today? If you find your sales interview gets off track, stop using this approach. Try something else. Successful salespeople are always creative. They keep track of what works and what doesn't work and on what type of prospects. Okay? On the other hand, a brief statement about something which may be occurring in either the prospect's company or industry, of course, if you have information regarding that, it may be a good lead-in. Perhaps it's something you read in the paper or on the internet, or something that's general knowledge. Maybe it's just something of interest that is occurring or has occurred in the prospect's area. Anything that will spark a mutual interest, get the attention of your prospect, and assist you in engaging that prospect is absolutely worth trying. If that prospect has been referred by another prospect or another client, use the name of the referral as an introductory statement always. And before you do this, make sure your referral has given you permission to do so. Okay, you never want to throw someone in the grease for giving a referral. They won't be too happy with you. Also, third-party referrals are one of the best ways to generate new business. However, you want to make sure that the prospect you are calling will recognize the name of the person who made the referral. Nothing is more devastating to this approach than the prospect asking, "Who?" If this occurs, you're dead in the water. So when you ask for a referral from a prospect or an existing client, make sure that your referring person is known to the prospect. If not, I can promise you, you will have your behind handed to you. Now, once you've made your lead-in statement to get attention of your prospect, you must then create an interest on the part of the prospect. Give them a reason for listening to what you have to say. Okay, this is generally accomplished by making an initial benefit statement supported by a feature, then addressing the prospect's most pressing need. As a general rule, if the interest-creating statement is effective, the prospect has a reason to listen to you. Just as with any other part of your presentation, you will want to customize this step to your own personality. You may even want to design your own steps. But whatever you do, you must remember your interest-creating statements must contain a reason for your call, and it must establish a need for the services of Lyons and Associates. Also remember, using listening skills and being sensitive to your prospect's first response becomes very important to set the tone for the rest of your call. This is when you set the pace of your presentation. This is when you determine how you will approach your prospect. When you're putting together your own script, your own presentation, remember at this point, your purpose is to gain your prospect's attention and to get him interested in what you have to say. Because unless you have his full attention, it is unlikely that that prospect will place any accounts with you. So you must sell yourself also, even before you can even begin selling our collection services, which means you have to immediately create an impression. You must slant your interest-creating statement at your prospect's self-interest. While it is true he is working for a company, your prospect has his own self-interest in mind. He wants to know how our services will benefit him, as well as his company, but obviously your prospect wants to know what's in it for me. Where is my benefit? Now, obviously, if you're talking with the owner or the president of a company, his and the company's self-interest are one in the same. Okay? So when you're talking to your prospect in terms of his self-interest, you fulfill two goals in your presentation. You create in your prospect's mind a compulsory and inescapable need for a collection service that will make his job easier. You also demonstrate how our collection service can satisfy that need. Okay, credit managers and the other persons that are responsible for accounts receivable are typically compensated on a salary basis. Normally, they get no commission or bonus for the amount of money they collect. In many instances, these people are left out of the financial loop, and they're not even privy to important financial information. So you have to appeal to their basic instincts. Try to find out what motivates them to want to do a better job at what they do. Your prospect, just as anyone else, normally wants to look better in his job, have less work to do, and be looked upon favorably by his superiors. Guys, remember, nearly everyone who goes after a salary-based job is looking for ways to do less work. Now, those of us who work on commission, we want to do less work too, but we want to put the work in as efficiently as possible to generate more income, to generate more cash flow. Okay? Remember, we're dealing with a completely different personality type when we're looking at people that are compensated on a salary basis. So your job is to convince that person that you can not only make their job easier, but we can make him look like a hero. Okay? And any credit manager who chooses us is going to look like a hero to their superiors, because they have now found the best agency in the country to handle their accounts receivable. Now, keep in mind, if your interest-creating statements satisfy the self-interest of your prospect, it is very likely that your prospect will give you the opportunity to make your presentation. And if you are given that opportunity, you are earning the right to qualify your prospect. So a well-designed, attention-getting, and interest-creating statement that always stresses the benefits that set us apart from other collection agencies. Okay, one thing is a network of thousands of licensed, bonded, credit-trained private investigators. Okay, this opening statement, if you use it, should be short but interesting, because the prospects often hear only about 20% of what they're listening to. So only present one, maybe two benefits at first. Other benefits can be used to counter objections and fill pauses in a conversation, okay, because we're in a consultative selling mode. We sell through questioning. Our sales are an interview, okay? So sometimes we will need to fill pauses in a conversation with an unsure prospect, so save some ammunition. You don't want to unload everything on them at one time. remember, the initial point is to get the prospect interested in what you have to say and earn the right to qualify. So at this point, you don't want to waste a lot of time making a lengthy presentation. You know, you might have the golden talk-off written down. You know, it might be a whole page long. And if you spend your time going through that whole thing every time, and the person you're calling has no need for our services or they absolutely do not want to listen, you have wasted your time. Now, on the other hand, you want to say enough to pique his interest. Stop what he's doing and take time to listen to you. Because by all means, remember that your phone call is an interruption to that prospect's day. It's an interruption to whatever that prospect has going on. Okay? Now, if you have handled your attention getting and interest creating statements effectively, now you have earned the right to qualify your prospect. Now, qualifying is two things. Okay? The first thing we want to understand about qualifying a prospect is, while it may be simply determining whether or not the prospect has a sufficient number of delinquent accounts to make it worth your while to do business with him, the main objective of your qualifying questions is to see if that prospect is going to engage you enough to give you the information on the questions you are asking. Okay, this is very important. Okay, this is in the psychology of selling. Okay, if the prospect is not going to give you information on what their need is, they are not going to place any accounts with you, therefore you are wasting your time. So when we qualify, we want to remember, we're doing this to see if they're going to talk to us about it. Okay, this is first and foremost. Will they give you the information or not? Because if they won't, they're certainly not going to give you any accounts to collect if they won't even talk to you about it. So, while this may be simple, it is the most crucial step of the call. And you will never be successful if you do not learn how to qualify. Your successful salespeople are those who have mastered this art. After all, if you were selling any product, your ideal client is the one that is in continuous need of your product. And we are in an industry where our clients have a continuous need. So this is so important. And guys, remember, once you close a deal, you're not done selling. Now you've got to develop. You've got to make sure they're going to keep placing business with you. Because if you don't, that client becomes a prospect again. I've seen it happen a million times. Continuous need of your product is going to be a reoccurring thing. Okay? You will rarely run into a client that needs us one time, okay? Because they're going to stay in business, they're going to keep selling on credit, and they're going to keep having a need. And what that means is great commissions for you, and of course, profit for Lyons and Associates. I don't think there's anything more that needs to be said about the importance of qualifying. Sometimes when you're qualifying, you'll find that there's no real need. Sometimes you'll find a brush off. Of course, if there's no need when you're asking your qualifying questions, get rid of them. Absolutely get rid of them. Once you're done qualifying, it's always a good idea to mention a feature. And of course, the benefit of that feature, and go for a close. You know, for example, with our network of thousands of licensed, bonded, credit-trained private investigators, we can have one of those investigators make a personal visit to your debtor's place of business. Do you have any accounts right now that you believe a personal visit will collect your money? This is a features benefits close. Okay, this sequence is one sure way of getting accounts for placement. Now, your prospect might interrupt you during your attempt to explain the features and benefits of our services. When this occurs, by all means, let them interrupt. Matter of fact, encourage them. When they're interrupting at this stage, it's a signal of interest. We want the interruption. We want to be cut off when we're presenting, because then we have objections to engage. Man, this is a beautiful thing. And having well-tuned listening skills is going to assist you in getting through this process. So not only should you be listening to what your prospects say, but you should also be listening to how they say it, and listen to what they don't vocalize. Hone in on their feelings. If they interrupt you with questions, it's an indication that there's a need for your services. By listening and then answering their questions with benefits, you will more often than not get accounts for placement. Now, as you continue with your presentation, try to find out something about the prospect's company. Get the prospect to engage you, and this can be things like number of employees, annual sales, annual credit sales. What is their collection policy? Who do they sell to? Where are their customers located? Do they sell locally, regionally, nationally, internationally? How many people do they have in their credit department? This information can help you better understand the prospect's needs and wants. Then you can make your presentation tailored specifically to your prospect. Okay? Also, this information can confirm or refute a prospect's claim that he has no need. Oh, well, you know, we do 500 million in credit sales annually, but we collect everything. Yeah, I'm calling BS on that. For example, a company that does under 5 million in sales, that sells locally only, might not have a need. A company with 25 million or 100 million in annual sales and sells nationally simply cannot continue to sell at that volume and sell on open accounts and not have delinquent accounts. It's impossible. It is zero possibility. Ask this type of prospect what he does to control his delinquency. What is his credit and collection policy? Let him know, for example, that other companies in his industry do have a certain percentage of delinquent accounts, and let him explain his position. As he does so, you may find there is a need for the services of Lyons and Associates. Remember, guys, we're selling a business-to-business service that every company has some use for, even if they sell only on COD. Okay? If a company sells on COD, somebody has bounced a check on them if they do any type of volume in sales, you know, unless they're a very small company. Chances are they have an NSF check or 10 sitting there. One of the key points to remember, whether you're answering an objection or making your presentation, you will want to use picture words. You literally want your prospect to see the money from his delinquent accounts flowing into his bank account. Okay? Remember, one of our competitive advantages over the competition is the fact that we use thousands of private investigators to encourage prompt payment of the prospect's debt. Our network is over 12,000 strong. So use the cast of thousands. Okay, in addition to this, we have the best collection staff in the business. Okay, experienced inside salespeople have a list of picture words that are ready to paint with. Okay, now you need to develop your own picture words to fit your personality and work them into your own personalized script. Okay, the sooner you do this, the sooner you will be engaging prospects better and increasing your close ratio. Now, as you go through this process, you have to listen for buying signals. Some of the buying signals include, "That sounds interesting," or "What is your rate? What happens if you can't collect? Tell me a little more about your service. How can you afford to do all that investigation? How soon will I get my money? How does your legal department work? How do I place accounts?" If they ask you how do you place accounts and you don't close the sale, it's time to quit now. Another type of or any other type of question by the prospect is going to be a buying signal. If they are asking you questions, that's a buying signal. Okay, when a prospect asks these types of questions or any type of question, they have already visualized themselves as a client. In their mind, they have already bought. So when you get this type of buying signal, forget everything else. Ask for the accounts. Go for the close. Go for the close. Okay, now let's get back to presentations. When you make your presentation, you want to make all the points necessary to keep your prospect's interest. Necessary is the key word there. Many salespeople talk themselves out of a sale. Not necessarily because they talk continuously, but because they don't know when to stop and listen. The point is, there are times when the best sales strategy is to talk, and there are times that when you continue to talk, you will kill your sale. Now, at first, you will have to do practically all of the talking. This is the only way to make a presentation and sell the benefits of doing business with Lyons and Associates. But you have to quickly gain interest, okay, and get that prospect engaged. Okay, this is your time to talk, and you have to make the most of it. Okay? When you're making the most of your presentation, you must also give your prospect a chance to express themselves. In other words, make your presentation a dialogue, not a monologue. Their opportunity to talk is your opportunity to learn. Okay? And you're going to learn how they react to your presentation. That's why listening is so important. And why you should probably read our chapter on effective listening. I've also got a video on it on our YouTube channel. So guys, watch this stuff, read this stuff, it's important. My strategies are proven. They work. They have made me a ton of money. Okay? So work on developing a smooth flowing presentation, one that develops into a dialogue with a prospect. Okay, this is so important. You want to have a dialogue. So you should read all of the chapters in our training material if you want to be successful, you know, and if you don't want to be successful, print them up and feed them straight to your paper shredder. You know, that's how you handle that. Through the use of right questions and qualifying your prospect, you're going to determine, in most cases, that there is a need. When you determine the need, ask for the placement of accounts. Okay? You can ask a simple question. Is there anything stopping you from placing these accounts now? Okay, don't ask them what's stopping you, because if you ask them what's stopping you, they're going to tell you what's stopping them. You want to ask, is there anything? Okay, and if they don't have a reason, close the deal. Ask for the placement of accounts. If the prospect agrees, write the business. Thank him. And then ask him for referrals. Now, on the other hand, if through your qualifying and your overcoming objections, you find that there is no need and the prospect just does not have anything or will not place anything with you, ask for referrals. Thank him for his time. Ask for some referrals. Okay. In doing this, you will find that you will write more business. If anybody has any questions, since I have no one in here engaging me, wow. I guess email me or ask your sales manager to help you with whatever it is. And hopefully next time we do one of these, we have some people in here engaging me, so I don't have to do all the talking. I like to do some listening too. This is going to conclude our part of making the sales call. And again, guys, any questions, email me, ask your sales manager, and you know, whatever questions you have will be addressed. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Take care.